Hi everyone. Chess has always been full of scandals and accusations. These accusations range from simply disrupting one's focus to hiring a hypnotist to stare at your opponent, or a more recent example, the accusation of a player using a machine in their anus to cheat. And if you're not so familiar with the chess world, you may go like, well, they probably happen, at the low levels or something, right? That's exactly where you're wrong. It happens in every single level, literally. It happens even at the World Championship match, which, mind you, is the match between two players to determine the best player on the planet. And in one case, a player accused the other of cheating in the toilet, which is not at all something like to say. But I'm not going to cover the controversy. I'm not a gossip channel. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to cover a game from that very same match, which was absolutely amazing. Chef approved. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. I'll now give you a little bit of a history lesson here. This game was known as the reunification match. 13 years prior to this game, in 1993, the match was supposed to be played against between Garry Kasparov and Mr. Nigel Short for the World Championship title. And they basically said, no, I'm out. They withdrew from FIDE, which is basically what FIFA is for football and what FIBA is for basketball. And they created their own thing. They created the PCA, the Professional Chess Association. And for 13 years, there were two world champions. That is, diabolical, to say the least. And after 13 years, only after 13 years, in 2006, they said, okay, let's bring our champions together and let's play a reunification match between the two champions. The game was between Vasily Topalov and Vladimir Kramnik. Topalov was the FIDE world champion and Kramnik was the PCA world champion. Topalov had the white pieces, and open with d4, we have a Slav defense. Honestly, a great opening. Many crazy positions can arise, and I really recommend it to you. Let's just see how this game was played between these two legends. The knights go out, and now pawn takes on c4. If you play e6, for example, which is the other main move, this is the semi-Slav, but this is the pure Slav. And now Topalov does not want to be down a pawn, so plays the move a4, stopping b5, and then takes the pawn with the bishop. So the dust is settled. Now the big question which arises is, why did Kramnik decide to take the pawn on c4 when he knew he was not going to keep it? Now all that he's gotten is that now I have an extra pawn in the center, right? I can just perhaps in the later on play e4, That's something I'll try to do. The thing is that in trying to regain the pawn, you have played the move a4. And that's a very subtle concession. It just gives away the square on b4, and the pawn on a4 is sort of a weakness themselves. And sometimes the only thing black has in their inventory is the outpost on b4, so they have to be very subtle. Just hold that square on b4 and never let go of it. So let's just see how Kramnik did it. Bishop to b4, short castles, and now knight out to d7. Here white has to draw if they want with the move queen b3. And you have to play a5 for reasons you'll understand later. If they really want to take your bishop, you say, nah, take the pawn behind it. And if they do, it's an eternal game of cat and mouse between the rook and queen until a draw is agreed upon. And if they do get very greedy and decide to take this pawn here, bye-bye, rook to b6, your queen is trapped, and you have to resign, boot up another game, lose that in 10 moves too, and then go and blabber, on Reddit about how chess is rigged and how, it does not favor you. Cry less, at least. Queen goes to e2. Topalov does not want to draw, just gets this bull on e3 ready to march up the board just when it sees the red flag. The bishop goes out to g6. Very logical, you see a bull coming at your way, you just, move a little bit aside, right? That's what a normal functioning human would do. e4 anyway. So if you pause for a moment here, you'd see that I can take this knight, and then I can take the pawn on e4, and I'm up a pawn. It's a world championship match. Why did Topalov even get into such a thing? Because what you will do is probably miss this, and you will say, you know what, this was all a part of my larger plan. It was not a blunder. No, there are no accidents. Bishop to a3. This was Topalov's point. You stop your opponent's king from castling, and this is one thing you always have to keep an eye out for when you're, giving up your bishop for a knight or anything else, is that now there is no counterpart to my bishop. You can no longer castle kingside, no matter how hard you try. You have to go queenside. And if you do, I already have the b file on my own, not rook b1 because the bishop, is going to hit it after knight moves. But the thing is that white is not losing. They're in fact still holding quite an advantage here. And it's very difficult for black to play. You can only play this if you're very confident in your defensive skills. And you're a bit delusional too. Bishop to g6, e4, and now castles. Kramnik says, fine, I'm not going to do that. And now with the problem of king safety out of the way, there is no point in gambiting the pawn anymore. Bishop to d3 back. And now bishop to h5. Hold on a second. The bishop went to f5 to g6 and to h5. What is going on here? I mean, is the pin on the knight even that important? Yes, it is. If you, for example, play h3, I will take your knight and then I'll play e5. Striking back at the center, and you can just say that I've already equalized. Very good position with my pieces too. And you may say, well, okay, how do I know when to play e5, c5, both, neither? When should I play them? Right? First, you learn by playing and with gaining experience, but the second thing is to see where their pieces are placed and what would they want to play. For example, if this was white to move, they would love to play the move e5 and just get this bishop open like a monster, honestly, and just probably checkmate you a couple moves down the line. But with playing the move e5 yourself, you just pin this pawn over here and they can no longer do anything about it. And this bishop turns into a very rubbish piece. If the bishop, for example, went on c4, conversely, e5 is not going to be the most recommended option because it opens this bishop. Or if the bishop was on g2 or f3, the move c5 is not to be recommended because it turns their bishop into a monster again. You have to see where your pieces are, where your and your opponent's pieces are placed to decide whether you want to play c5 or e5. Anyways, enough with that. After bishop to h5, we already have seen that black is trying to chop your knight off and play e5. So what if you play e5 ourselves? Very simple solution, right? But there's a big problem with it, a big flaw. That is that when you push pawns, they gain control of new squares, but they do lose control over others. This is the equivalent of a chess crime. You just give an outpost right in the middle of the board. The knight goes to d5. But I immediately fill it with a pawn. It's like you commit a crime and then you immediately burn all the evidence which are related to that. Not recommended. Please don't try that at home. And on the move, queen to e3. So this is a very simple move, but very dangerous. With pen on the knight out of the way, I'm looking for ideas of knight g5, and your king suddenly looks very, very unsafe. And then, you know, I can try to just play ooga booga on the king side. Now with the plans, talking about the plans, I'll say, look, the pawn structure is now completely locked, okay? But there's a big difference. The pawn structure for white is looking towards this way, and the pawn structure for black is looking this way. So white has to try to play on the king side, generally, as I said, ooga booga pawn throws, and bring the pieces over, the rooks do. And black has to try for a more subtle approach, maneuvering, trying to pick apart the weaknesses, for example, on d4, you know, try to perhaps occupy c4 when the bishop, you know, is traded, if it ever is. You know, use the square on b4 or try to poke its weakness on a4. You have to be a lot more subtle. But let's just see how Kramnik did it, honestly. He did it very well. The bishop goes back to g6, follows the very simple rule. You have good bishop, me have bad bishop, me trade bishop. Simple. The knight goes now to g5. A very, very intimidating move. There are many tricks. If you play h6, I'll take the pawn on e6. Very nice tactic, honestly. And I did not put the moves on the board on purpose. Calculate it a little bit. How lazy are you? Come on. And, you know, if you take, it's going to be, again, very dangerous. Like, something like this you have to play in g4. No, don't get into that, okay? You shouldn't play that. But what you should play is to be cool, calm, and collected. Rook to e8. Just come on. Very simple move. The knight is going to go back to f8. Very comfy square to just protect the king. You don't need to instigate. That's it. The pawn goes to f4 now, and now the move which Kramnik played was something which was not that much played in the time. What he did was that he basically got rid of his bishop and then put another pawn on a light square and pushed this pawn to f5. And if you're a man of culture or a woman of culture or you're a human of culture, you would say en passant is forced. And you're wrong. It's just a joke for those of you who have fallen for it all the time and say, what is the meaning? What is the meaning? Look, if you take en passant, your whole position will just fall apart, disintegrate. This bishop is now rubbish. This pawn is weak. I have ideas of attacking it. This pawn on e4 is again weak. I may even use the square on c4 to attack the pawn. For example, rook c8, rook c4, queen b6. You're in a very bad situation. This bishop is going to become good on d6 or on e7 perhaps. This knight is probably going to get kicked back. This bishop is just entire rubbish. and you would just dream of bringing the pawn back to f2, which is obviously not a good news for you. So after f5, and again, you only get one shot. So after you play the move bishop e3, but I mean, you didn't play the move bishop e3, you'll find a way to hang a queen here, which, I mean, these are the ways. But instead, you just play the move bishop e3, Topalov, and now this position is even more blocked than it used to be before. And the knight goes back to f8. The king just looks very, very nice and comfy. And the king is very safe, right? Or is it? Are you sure about that? Snap back to reality. I'm gonna play the move g4. In fact, I'm gonna do it right now. Haha. I'm like that rude customer, doesn't wait for the line. I just cut the line and I go. If you take my pawn, I'll play f5, and you know, after this, not only will you not win any material, you just let me in to your house for me to rob your house, and yeah, that's not good. So after g4, black plays move queen d7. Very nice move defending the pawn. Rook g1 now. You finally go and defend it, and now the bishop goes back to e7. A very nice move actually. The bishop, we finally realized that it's not doing anything on e7 on b4, so it goes back to e7. And again, as a rule of thumb, when you're attacking, you should try to avoid exchanging pieces. One thing which could have been played was this move knight takes c6, a beautiful move followed by taking the pawn. Very, very crazy positions come up, but I'm not going to explain them because there are, again, too many complications arising later in the game, which I simply won't find enough time to be like 5 hours. Now the rook goes to c4. So this was the other point of the move bishop d7. You vacate the 4th rank. Now you're threatening to win the pawn. You know what Topalov did? Meh, I'm going to play rook g2. The a4 pawn, you want it? Go take it. I don't care. Now, although obviously you can't take it, because if you do, I will trade the rooks, and then I'll take the pawn on f5. So not only, again, have you not won any material, you just let me in. So Kramnik first takes the pawn on g4, removes the pawn from f4, and the tension is removed, and finally takes. This time you obviously won't take, you'll bring your rook to g1, and you've got everything in the attack, but black is one pawn. Which side has the easier game? Obviously white, but it's a world championship match, you have to be careful. g6, and now h4, just power play. Every single piece is trying to just do something in the attack. The idea is h5, and now from here on in, every move, okay, every move is the only move to survive and keep the equilibrium and the balance. Keyword, balance. The position is equal right now. Sacking the rook won't actually work. For example, I don't know, if you take it right now, I will take with the knight. I mean, now I'll play king h8. This is a key move, because if I take your rook, it's going to be a draw. Let me show you with the arrows again. Calculate, please. And you just, I don't know, have a draw, okay? Remember that. And if the king goes to f8, you go to h6. Anyways, after g6, h4 is played now. Rook to b4. This is the only move. I mean, what can possibly be the point? I play h5, again, the only move. Queen to b5, what the heck is going on? Your king is begging for some attention and security, while your queen and rook are, well, if we win the pawn on b2, when we have 2 pawns on the queen side, which are passed pawns, that's going to be a very, very good advantage for us in the main game. Right, Watson? Right? I guess not. The queen goes back to c2, which seems a bit weird because the rook can now take. Again, these are the only moves still. And now the entire point of this entire sequence is revealed as Veselin Topalov uncorks. Pawn takes on g6. H takes g6. What a beautiful move. And if you dare take this queen, you're going to be mated. You can pause it if you want to check out. I'm obviously not going to wait for you. We take the pawn simply. Get the rooks up. Firstly, we'll calculate what happens if the king takes. I'll play check. If your king goes up, we'll calculate that. But if the king goes down, we'll play f5. And there's a very, very cool idea. If you play this move, if you play, I don't know, bishop g5, very, very important detail, I'll play rook takes on g5. If you take with the bishop, you lose your rook. And now you cannot stop anything, because if you, I don't know, play a5, I've got this very nice move, rook 5 to g3, and a very, very nice old classical ladder mate. So after the move f5, if the king goes to h5 instead, there's a very nice, this is just a very nice move. Again, pause the video if you want to find it. This is just a beautiful move. Pawn to f6. Pawn to f6. The idea is not even attacking the bishop. The idea is cutting the eyesight of the bishop from the g5 square. And now, for example, if you, I don't know, do this, I'll play the move rook 1 to g5. Very, very beautiful. Rook f5. Rook f5. This is mate. This is a mate. Oh god, we should quit chess. Honestly. A move like h6, g6 is far above our level. Anyways, so with king h6 out of the way, we'll play king h8. Now what we're going to do is that we're going to play rook g8, then bring the other, bring their other rook in, and then play f5. Again, if your king goes down, now I can play this move, and after your knight blocks, I have, again, another nice ladder mate with my rooks on top of your king, rather than below it. Phrasing could have been a bit better. But anyways, instead if you play the move bishop g5, again a crucial detail, don't take with the bishop, take with the rook. If you take with the bishop, your king actually, their king will escape. I don't know. You play rook h8, I play king g4. It doesn't matter. I just simply go and like take your pawn. I mean, this is a winning. What? Well, what the hell is your king doing? You cannot do anything with my king. You can't. Your king, my king, okay, has no legal moves, but you can't do anything to it. Actually, it has e4. Sorry. If it didn't have it, it would be mate. So after rook takes on g5, it's very important. Again, the line which the engine gives, the best line, is to just give your queen away. Queen f1, then they give a check, perhaps on, I guess, on h2 with the rook, and then whatever. But if you, for example, play the move a5, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to play the move rook g6, and now rook h6. Sorry. And also, if you play this move, I will play the move rook 6 to g7. This is mate, because now the bishop sees the h6 square. Very nice details. And also, if they decide to not take the pawn, we'll simply force them to the same position which we had after this. This is the same thing. So anyways, after h6, g6, there's again only one move to keep equality. The position is somehow equal. If you play it on low depth, Stockfish says that white is winning, like +1 or +1.5. But if you run it on high enough depth, it will say that it's equal. The move is h5. Very nice move. There's a very famous quote by Winston Churchill who says, "If you're going through hell, keep going." And now guess what Topalov played? He played with his queen hanging, with his rook hanging, simultaneously, pawn to g7, another beautiful move. I mean, this is what you dream of, just sacrificing your queen twice and your rook in a world championship final. The rook has to be taken. Again, you can't take the queen. This time the combination is a lot more simple. We just have something like this, which is a lot more simple. And if the king moves to the h file, king takes f8 is the only move. Why the hell am I functioning or something? So you have to take the rook, and now I take your knight first. Now look, I've sacrificed an exchange. Now you could have never taken my queen, obviously. And now after everything that Topalov had through in front of Kramnik, he finally made a mistake. He played the move bishop takes f8. This is a big blunder. The correct move was to take with the king. But it's very risky. You know why? Because I could play something like this. This just feels like you're just done with. You're gonna die. Seriously. There's a very, very key detail. Or for example, queen g6, let's say. There's a very, very important thing you have to notice. Queen e2, queen takes g4. Again, nothing works in this position unless you find the idea. Bishop to g5. You need to find room for your king to run away. And it's very funny. 1, 2, and 3 pieces, 1, 2, and 3 pieces can take this bishop, but none of them actually can. Because if you take with the queen, I'll take your knight. If you take with the pawn, now I will take your bishop. Look, if you for example, take my bishop, now there's mate, right? So with the pawn taking, you block your own threat. So now I can take your bishop. And if you take it with the knight, I simply have queen h2 mate. So you cannot take it ever. And if you want to play, for example, queen h5, now I can get ready to run away with my king. You can just take this bishop, but this will again lose, which is very funny. Yeah, the king goes to d7. It's safe. The pawns will start to roll. So you cannot play any way you like when you sacrifice so much material. So after g takes f8 queens, Kramnik did not see all of this. Instead, he played the move bishop takes f8. He might have seen it, but decided not to play it. And now the win is very simple. You take the pawn. You know what Topalov played? He played queen g6. Oh my god. one of the biggest chances of his lifetime miss. And you know why? Because after rook takes g4, you can't go here because of mate. Sorry. And you cannot go here because of, rook h4 check followed by queen h7 getting in. If you want to play bishop g7, I'll play the move queen c7. This is a win. No matter how weak your king seems. For example, queen f1 check. My knight will land on g1. And as they say, the knight is the best defender for a king. It really shows. Stops the check on f3, on h3, blocks this check too. Absolutely amazing. The best way, actually, the only way you can stop imminent loss is by doing this. Basically giving your queen away for free and trying to defend this endgame, which is obviously undefendable. Instead, queen g6 was played. And the idea was actually very funny. This is still better for white. f5. I'm going with f6. This seems equally dangerous. You know what Kramnik played? You can again pause it. It's so counterintuitive. It's so good at the same time. It's rook e7. Walking right into a fork. And when f6 is played, you first play queen e2, threatening to take this knight with check, after which you'll get mated. So your queen has to drop back, and now you play the move rook f7. So now not only can't you take the bishop with your queen, you cannot take it with the pawn neither, because my rook now sees your knight. That's it. Here, white had a winning plan with the move queen to h5, and the idea of this is to play the move rook g3, which, honestly, if you see this, I gotta say you have to be checked if you have a machine in anywhere of your body, as that accusation goes. The idea of rook g3, you know what the idea of rook g3 is? I don't know. If you push, I will take this guy. I will take this guy. Finally, I can take this guy because my knight is defended. And also, you cannot take my bishop because knight g5 is gonna... Sorry, not now. But, for example, let's say here. You cannot play this because knight g5 will come in. Remember, the knight is being pinned to your queen. Even I am getting confused. Rook f7 was played. Here the move rook c1 was played. This is where things start to get out of hand. Topalov starts to lose the thread, and Kramnik, like the older brother, the annoying brother, says, "You want the c file? Nah, I'm not gonna give you the c file." I wonder if it was as annoying as he is right now. So after rook takes on c2, what Kramnik played was to lure the king forward and then take the rook and play queen e4, offering a trade of queens. Remember, Kramnik is up an exchange. He's up an exchange. Plus a pawn. So this endgame absolutely seems winning for black. But it actually is not. You have to be very careful. So first things first, if you take, apparently, you get a good position. For example, I don't know, let's say like rook takes g7, king f4. You get a good position. For what reason? Because now you've got two pieces for a rook, which are generally better. This pawn on e6 is also probably going to fall in some time. And these two pawns are actually not that threatening. They're not that close to promotion at all. For example, the way you can sort of stop them is to say they play the move a5, you play bishop d2, they play a4, and then you play bishop e4. You block them forever. Obviously they still have ways to try to break this bind, but that's how you do it. After queen e4, bishop to f4 was played. And now again, like the annoying old brother, Kramnik insists, or the younger brother if you may. Finally, Topalov accepts and plays the move bishop to g5. So, first things first, you shouldn't really try to take this knight because, it's gonna be real danger. It's really gonna be danger. You start to lose the threat completely, and bishop g5 instead is actually a very good move. The idea is to take the pawn here and play the move bishop to c1, but it's a bit too late. Bishop to f8 is played, and now rook to c7. You have to keep up your bishop. I will look at the other move here for you. The move is knight g5, and if they play here, you now take this pawn. You take this bishop. This is far better, because after here, you actually can get to play bishop d2, firstly stopping this, and then with the idea of king f4 trying to take the pawn and try to go forward. In this case, you have to just give your bishop completely to scraps. But one thing here, one final trick. In this position, Topalov played the move bishop takes a3, but the engines found a better choice. And that move is bishop to g5. No way. Pawn to a2. The pawn will just simply queen. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna play the move king g6, threaten this check. You cannot queen. Because if you do, I'll play f7 and then I'll play bishop f6 and this is mate. Brutal. So you have to instead play the move rook to g7 check to force the pawns to disconnect and then queen your pawn. And this endgame, apparently after knight h4, is sort of equal. This is still not reached the situation where you call it a table base. But I mean, this idea of knight h5 and knight h6 checkmate basically is very dangerous. It's not even clear what should black do. And how should they proceed? Anyways, after rook c7, this was taken, and now the move king d5. It's true that you're down a rook, but things are still not that easy. Let's go. Rook now goes to c1, knight goes to g5, rook f7 and e7. So this pawn just seems to be queening. We stopped the king from going to f7, but this was deliberate. We play rook e1 now, the king takes on d5, and we give up our bishop for 2 pawns. Now, the endgame is very interesting. We've got rook and pawn versus knight and pawn. Mind you, if the pawns go off the board, this is a book draw. I mean, there's no literal way you can win it, honestly, against someone as good as Topalov. The king goes to d6, and just let's see how Kramnik got on with his business. Apparently, the move rook to e3 was better, perhaps to just stop these, and, we've already reached the situation of a table base. The move rook e3 is the only move, and rook e1 draws. Honestly, I can't comprehend anything anymore. First step, the king has to come closer. The king goes to c8 now. Very nice. The king goes to e7 here, however. Just preparing this red carpet. How are you going to stop it? There's one way. Look, in my opinion, I'm pretty sure that you have had many of such positions where you knew that you were better, but your opponent played some plan which looked too good to be true. And if it looks too good to be true, it probably means it's too good to be true. Here, you can just break their dreams and aspirations in their face with the move rook to h1. Beautiful move, the only move to win the game. And now the move d6 is met by rook h7, forcing your king away. And then I can just push my pawn because there's no way for you to prepare the move pawn to d7 without the pawn getting captured. So Topalov said, okay, you want to play rook h7? I'm going to stop it. This made things even worse apparently because I play b5 now. And now the pawn goes to d6. When it goes to d6, I block it. So it's okay. Your knight is now a bit out of action. Knight goes to e6, b4, and knight to c5. So what should we do now? Right, this seems a threat. Very important thing. The knight no longer blocks the e-file, so we play check. We play check. The king can't step this way, so they have to go this way. Now, my rook is doing what's sort of known as border control. Yeah, I named it myself. And now rook e3. And in this position, Mr. Veselin Topalov resigned. This rook is the all-star guy here. Just cuts the king away from everything. The king is safe and is in front of the pawn, stops it from promoting. And this pawn is also prepared to push to b3, after which I will simply win. You have to sacrifice the knight for the pawn, and it's GG's. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching so far. I hope you enjoyed this video and perhaps learned something from it. I'll see you in the next videos. Take care.